Welcome to the Lit Mom Podcast, your go-to source for bite-sized literacy tips and tricks. Join me as we explore evidence-based strategies, techniques, and resources that promote strong reading and writing skill development. Get ready to empower your family with the knowledge and tools to navigate the world of structured literacy and unlock limitless potential. Welcome to another episode of the Lit Mom Podcast, where we continue to dive into the world of literacy and how you can support your child in developing their literacy skills at home. I'm your host, Dev, and today we are going to focus on another crucial part of literacy development, and that is building background knowledge. As always, before we begin our episode, I would first like to acknowledge the traditional territory in which I reside on. I reside on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people, which includes the Odawa, the Ojibwe, and the Potawatomi nations, also known as the Three Fires Confederacy. As you may know, September 30th is Orange Shirt Day, and it is quickly approaching. When I think about reconciliation and respect, one thing that we can continue to do is to support Indigenous communities. And this is a great opportunity to be purchasing orange shirts if you're planning to do so from an Indigenous artist, an Indigenous owned company, so that those proceeds can go back into the Indigenous community. There are really great options online. You still have time to order one if you are looking, but there's also your Native Friendship Center. So check them out and see if they have any shirts available for purchase. But again, this allows for the money that you're going to spend to show your support, to raise awareness, to be going back into Indigenous communities, especially if you pick one that is in your area, which I think is a really wonderful option when we continue to move towards reconciliation and respect. For this episode, I thought it was important to talk about background knowledge because background knowledge is kind of like that treasure chest that you're going to give your child that provides them with important information as well as experiences that they're going to be able to use academically and outside of the academic world. They are going to use those skills as a foundation to develop their reading comprehension, their critical thinking skills, as well as effective communication skills, which are all key components, not only for literacy, but day-to-day life. So I think it's a really key aspect that we want to spend some time focusing on today. So why is background knowledge so important? Imagine a book as a bridge into a whole new world. And if your child knows about that world, then they're going to have an easier time understanding and taking in the information to be able to enjoy it and understand and make new meaning out of the information in the text. Whereas if they don't have any content knowledge or an understanding of words in the text, they're going to have a harder time comprehending what they're reading, which essentially sets up a barrier for them in their learning journey. Naturally, children are not born with all this knowledge about the world. They have very few experiences, and the way that they start to gather an understanding of the world around us is through information that we provide them, through the experiences that they gain, through us taking them to different places in the community and having them learn about the world around them that way. So it's really important that we continue to foster that learning and support our children in developing their background knowledge so that they can apply it to key areas of literacy. The more knowledge a child comes to the table with, more background knowledge they have, the greater their capacity is going to be to learn because they already have a bit of an understanding about many content areas. And so sometimes we like to think about background knowledge as being content specific, but it is going to trickle over into other areas because they're going to be able to make connections to something that they've been previously exposed to or previously explored that'll help make it easier for them to understand new content and text that they may be diving into at school or at home with you as well. There is a tie to vocabulary being the understanding of words and their meanings. And so these are very closely linked to one another. But again, we're going to just focus on background knowledge today as the idea that we want to give students and children information and experiences to build their understanding of the world around them. To loop in the research part of this, previous studies have found that it plays a huge role. So background knowledge plays an enormous role in reading comprehension. right? The understanding that if a student has this background knowledge, it is going to make it much easier for them to understand a text and make meaning from it, versus if they don't have any background knowledge or understanding of what they're reading, they're going to have to process what do these words mean individually before they can pull it all together. So it's really important to have that background knowledge in place for our kiddos. And the best way to set them up for success is to provide them with ample opportunities to explore the world around them and learn about different content areas or concepts, and not just stick to one thing that they know and think that that is going to be sufficient in their learning journey. Now, I want to share a few ways that you can support your child in developing or building their background knowledge at home. As always, I like to recommend read aloud and read aloud to your child often. At this point, I know that we often talk about using read alouds, but there's so many different purposeful ways that we can use a read aloud to support your child's learning at home. When we're talking about building background knowledge, I recommend picking different texts, different books that are going to range in content area to allow for your child to broaden their understanding of different concepts, different solutions, problems, and situations through reading books with you. This will allow for them to ask questions, to share their wonderings with you, and have deeper conversations to make new connections and meaning about a specific content area that they previously may not have explored. The second thing that I suggest is taking the opportunity, whether it's to educational places such as museums or zoos, to share the experience of taking in new information and exploring the world around them. It may not always be possible to go on these trips to museums or zoos, so even just going to the grocery store, going for walks around your community, going to the public library, taking these opportunities with your child so they can explore the world around you is going to be really helpful to broaden their understanding of different concepts and content. A third way to support your child in building their background knowledge is to encourage curiosity. I am sure right now you can think of a handful of content areas or topics that your child is really engaged in. They might be dinosaurs, space, different areas where your child may get excited when they start to talk about or learn about the content. Use this to support their learning, whether you focus on a new topic that maybe they're interested in but not that familiar with yet. Explore books, take a look at videos, anything you can do to support their curiosity and have them research or look at questions that they might have to build that background knowledge that may be theme specific or content specific. It's still going to support their learning and build that background knowledge that can be used or leveraged in different areas of their learning and day-to-day life. A fourth way that you can support your child in building their background knowledge is to discuss age-appropriate news or current events. This gives them real-life experiences, things that are happening in the world around them that are current and relevant, that they can gain an understanding of and explore with you. And the last suggestion I have for you today is always allow for your child to ask questions. If they are curious about something, work with them to find the answers. This is going to help them build their understanding of certain areas or topics that they really enjoy, and they're going to be more willing to engage in inquiry with you than if it's something that they're not interested in. So allow for them to ask those questions and be ready to do some exploring of books, of videos, of different ways that you can find out this information together so that they can have a new understanding of a topic that they've been wondering about. One thing that I want to share is how this can all be pulled in together really nicely. So previously I worked as a virtual kindergarten teacher, and I had this amazing teaching partner for 2 years, and she was my other half, and she was amazing to say the least. And so Heather actually took on the idea of doing a bird club with some of our students that were interested in wondering about birds. It all started out with reading a book and having some wonderings about what kind of bird was in the book, and we didn't have an answer. So we ended up having a virtual field trip to one of the national parks where they taught us about birding. They taught us how we could identify different species using the 5 S's. And from there, Heather met with, once a week, a small group of students that were curious and wondering about birds and wanted to expand their background knowledge. She listened to their questions. She helped them find the answers, not by telling them what the answers were, but finding different ways and different information bases that they could explore together to find the answers that the kiddos were looking for. She also engaged in read alouds. And when I talk about read alouds, I think it's important to say I love picture books, and I think picture books are really awesome. But I think we also need to remember to bring in those nonfiction books that are going to give students real facts and real information to learn about. So she brought in books about birds. We even had one student who was so excited to have bird club so they could show her the new book that they picked up from Cabela's. And I can hear the excitement from across the classroom because I wasn't on screen with them during this time. It was a really impactful learning opportunity for the students that met with her. They were able to apply the information that they gained from that time together to different content areas to expand their understanding of birds and different species and animals and what animals might need to live. And all these different pieces just stemming from having a conversation and exploring birds. So I really encourage you to have your child decide on something that they're really interested in learning about and go from there. See where it takes you. But again, it's going to build that background knowledge, which is going to support them in their learning journey and reading comprehension. My final thoughts for today as we wrap up this podcast is to consider building background knowledge as giving your child the keys to opening endless opportunities for learning. You are going to support them in finding ways to build their reading comprehension, their critical thinking skills and problem solving along the way. And it's going to just further solidify that foundation that they need when we talk about building reading and writing skills. And it actually is also going to boost their confidence. Think about how comfortable we are when we talk about a topic that we know and understand well. The more information we have and the more we can understand different content areas and different themes and concepts, the more comfortable we're going to be with exploring and learning. When we don't know something, we tend to step back a little bit and not be the one that's as comfortable sharing or moving forward in our learning. So this is going to help your child build their confidence and feel comfortable sharing and being maybe that go-to person for information on dinosaurs or on things that are related to science. But it helps to boost them in their engagement and their willingness to learn when they already have a really strong foundation to build upon. All right, so today we have covered a lot of information about the importance of building background knowledge and how to do it effectively. So I really want to quickly just maybe do a little bit of a rapid fire of a few more tips and tricks and things that you can do to support building background knowledge at home. One, you can visit the library and take out books that are going to be fiction and nonfiction on different content and topic areas for your child to explore. Two, listen to audiobooks. Allow for your child to listen to books and not have to read or listen to you read. It's going to give them a different perspective and allow for them to check out books in a different format, which is wonderful. Also, check out documentaries. If there's any events that they can check out that are going to give them that educational show but build their content area, I would say check out that. Food shows might be cool if they're interested in food and cooking. They might learn new vocabulary. They're going to learn how to cook and the different steps that it takes to cook different meals. So these are just really simple and easy ways that you can also support your child in developing their background knowledge at home. As always, I would love to finish off by sharing a resource and a picture book. The resource today, I think, fits really nicely with this topic of background knowledge, and it is a website called Starts with a Book. And Starts with a Book talks about the fact that we want to build content knowledge for our kiddos, and they have a range of topics and content that you can explore with your child based on their interests. There are dinosaurs, there is science-based activities, there is money and math, a range of topic areas for you to explore with your child. And it goes through and it lists for you different read alouds, both fiction and nonfiction options. It gives you different activities that are hands-on that you can try at home. It lists different podcasts. So it gives you a really big wealth of knowledge and options for you to explore with your child, depending on what their interest is to explore on that topic. So I think it's really worthwhile for you to check out and see what kind of content areas you can dive into with your child. And for today's picture book, I have picked The Turtle and the Tortoise Are Not Friends, and this is by Mike Reiss and Ashley Spires. The reason I picked this book is because it might be a really interesting starting point if you have a child that is interested in learning about turtles and thought there might be a difference between turtles and tortoises. I'm going to leave it there, but I think it's something that might be a fun way to explore and start to wonder about turtles if you have a child that might be interested. And from here, you might dive into nonfiction books about turtles or tortoises or different sea animals, but see what their interest is. And as well, I think it's just a really cute story to share about how sometimes we can become friends with people and support one another. So super great book. This is going to be my recommendation for this episode. Next episode, we are going to talk about vocabulary, and we are going to tie vocabulary into background knowledge because, as I said, they're kind of interweaved, not kind of, they are interweaved with one another, and they play a really significant role in our children's understanding of text and being able to comprehend what they read. So next episode, we will talk about vocabulary. I hope that you will join me. I hope that today's episode was helpful and that there are some strategies or tips that you are able to take and apply at home or in the classroom to support your child or students in developing and building their background knowledge. That's it for this episode of the Lit Mom podcast. I'm your host, Dev, bringing literacy tips and tricks straight to your headphones. Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and wondering alongside your kiddos.